So, Katie, if you could just talk about where do you house your content, how do you organize it, and we'll just
If
go
you want a
one
free
person at a
ticket,
time.
the
I'll
link's
start
in the
with Katie,
bio
Carmine, Maddie, and Jimmy. Go ahead, Katie.
So I
on
host on
Haps.
Anchor, and that was a big
Or
move. I
use
started.
code Harbor
I've been podcasting since 2014, and I originally started with Libsyn. And
on
so
Eventbrite for Podfest Global.
last summer, I moved my main show over to Anchor and started all my other shows there. So that's where I house everything. Um, and then how do I organize it? So I'm obviously uploading everything. Organizationally, I am very clear as far as like what types of meditations I'm writing for each show. I write each meditation, I then record the meditation, and then I send it over to my phenomenal producer. And so that process gets pressed onto him. I use Asana to be able to manage him. I also have an assistant who is basically the conversation before, they talked about being able to take your content that you're doing and posting it everywhere. So I take quotes out of my meditations, and I have an assistant who then puts that onto Instagram, makes them really pretty, putting that up on the website, all that sort of stuff. I use a tool called Story Chief to be able to put everything kind of in one place, and then that gets spread out to my website, where the players go live and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. Well, if someone's in the chat, feel free to put the links down for everybody else. Carmine, I saw you using Libsyn. Libsyn's a great host. How do you organize your feed?
Yeah, so we're a little bit disorganized in a way, but Libsyn is a great host for us now. We are looking to host internally if we can, or go to another site. But we kind of have in-house production. We have cloud-based where we record shows, we upload them to the cloud. When the shows are uploaded, our production team gets a notice that they're there. They then look through the shows. They start the editing process. If there's any questions or comments or notes that I take during the show, I'll upload those to the folders. So it's a pretty slim process. We don't go too crazy just because we were really bogged down. We were trying to be perfectionists when we first started the network, and it was just really hurting us. So we tried to slim down our process, but it's pretty common way that we organize everything.
Maddie, how about you?
So we host our podcasts on Acast and Simplecast. They each give us a little something for the shows that we need. We're very structured with how we have everything done weekly. Our producers will send things to a sound designer by a certain day, and then they turn that around. And then
Hi, Woof Woof.
Who's
in the other room?
Or the producer will do all three. For us, we live on Slack. Like, we have to have Slack up all the time. We have our Monday meeting. We have a Thursday meeting. One meeting is we have a production meeting on Monday. With Thursday, we have let's go through the projects, because outside of our network, we also do a lot of work for brands, and it's the same team that's working on those. So everybody's kind of got something. I make sure a lot of my people that work for me, almost all of them came from where I teach at the Academy of Art University. So I had them as students, so I know that they know how to do X, X, and X.
Haps doesn't work well on my other phone.
Everybody can do everybody else's job.
I think I can see the video, but not the audio, unless I go on Periscope, which is
so things like that. So we share a lot of the work.
Not Haps.
And we all have to be passionate and love the project. So we do a lot of that, and a lot of team building, so that everybody's got each other's back. Because those, when you have your podcast out on Wednesday, especially when it's sports, sometimes you don't get stuff done until Tuesday night late, and it's a rush. So everybody's got to chip in.
Okay, Jimmy.
Yes, sir. So each show presented a different set of challenges. So to make things simpler on the production side, for history, I just go to Wikipedia, like what happened on this day, and I'll just go to a certain year. A lot of tragic stuff gets written into Wikipedia articles, so I try to find something mostly uplifting, which ends up normally being something that happens in outer space. But a lot of times, like the first of history is what we'll find. Insofar as dinosaur, I've broken that down into dinosaur media, dinosaurs, and then like a large word that I don't recognize. So if I don't recognize it, I feel like a youngster might not.
Did someone subscribe to your channel, Woof Woof?
With Disney,
Let me look.
I do a section of a park, I do a movie, and I do a TV show.
16 subscribers.
Or the posture there. And then
it's all hosted on Anchor, right?
It's all. I'm sorry. Yes,
Melanie Weiss are subscribed.
As far as
all right, we'll subscribe to her.
A lot of Google Sheets and a lot of Python programming. I used to have a tool that would automatically upload stuff to Libsyn, and that was a lifesaver. Yeah, yes, sir.
So next,
I'm having bad
next
anxiety
question
today.
is
I only
Slack
slept
seems to
4
have
hours and
I
woke
know
up again.
the chat's lit up with Slack, and I have a feeling I'm using Slack for, like, I'm in a collaborative space, so we have a Slack for everybody in this space, and I'm
Woof woof, your page still
gravitating
says
more and
Happy
more to Slack,
Valentine's
and I think
Day.
even for our team, we're going to start having more Slack conversations because it works so well, and it even goes into your email and stuff. Maddie, you have entree to really great talent because you're also a teacher, so that's a great way to find talent. What are some other ways, like when you build a network, you need talent, like you need people to scale out. If any of you have any suggestions to how you found some of the great people that you work with, or give it, like, not everybody's teaching at college, but what other ways, Maddie, or maybe we could go to the college and ask for people that we want a paid internship or something.
I think that's a great way. A lot of students are out there, they want to do it, and the generation way below us is they're doing audio in high school. Like they're so much ahead of us than we were. The other thing is I look for podcasts that are done well, and like I did with my last presentation. If an independent podcaster can do an amazing podcast, hey, there's talent right there. And I find most of them would like a paycheck.
Wow, I missed all these comments.
They do. And when I teach podcasting, one thing I tell people is you most likely won't make money from your podcast, but that skill set that you've learned making yours, that's where you will make money. That's how I've made a career for 14 years. It's not just it hasn't been podcasts I've hosted. It's been working on everybody else's show. So I think there, especially some place like Podfest, there's so many great young producers here that you can find, I'm sure.
Maddie brings up a good point, and I want to throw this over to Carmine and Katie. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you've been in here long enough, you realize that most people pivot like 2-3 times over until they hit the big one. And we see, or they find, like, the audience tells them what they're looking for. Carmine, can you talk about how, like, where you started, kind of how you expanded, and where you're at now, what you've learned in that process? Any pivot points or anything that you really learned for you and your network?
It's a good question. We all suffer from that overload. So yeah, when I first started, podcasting, I didn't even know what a podcast was, as Chris and Katie will tell you. I went in and went to one of Chris's meetups, and I decided I want to be a podcaster. And then, I jumped all in, and I overwhelmed myself with several different shows, and it was a little bit crazy. So I had to pivot back to the grassroots, started up again, 1 or 2 shows. And, I wanted to talk to everyone about everything and have a podcast on everything. And, so it really crashed me back down. And just, you have to really think about your main goal, your laser focus. And that's where I honed in on, being that big fish in that little pond with the invention and product development. And that really helped me hone in on my message, what I wanted to talk about. And that exploded my show.
And Katie, how about for you? Were you always doing the Women's Meditation Network?
No, in 2014, when I started podcasting, my podcast was called Biz Women Rock. And for 6 years, I had an interview-based show. That podcast was relatively popular in the sense that it provided for a really good strategic coaching business for me. And so, I interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of really incredible business women. And the short story is in 2018, I was very excited to, triple that business and that podcast. And we got pregnant with our second kid, and it just threw everything for a loop. And I spent a lot of time going, wait a minute, what do I want? I don't know if I want this kind of lifestyle that this business and this podcast have given me. And what else could there be? And I had the idea of a meditation podcast for women, and I just never did anything with it because it really wasn't in line with what I was doing at the time. And so now this sort of opening kind of gave me an opportunity to really brainstorm on, like, what could this be? Chris and I were going on walks all the time, sort of brainstorming on, like, what could this be? And the reason I transitioned was for 2 big reasons. Was because, number one, I knew it could be really the next evolution of my work in this world with women, which is what I feel really passionate about doing. It could be a lot more holistic and not necessarily so specific to women entrepreneurs. It could be more holistic in really helping women with their mental health, with their sense of self. And secondly, because I knew I could build a business that gave me time freedom. And that's what I wanted. That was a huge, and still is a huge value of mine, with 2 little kids at home who you could probably hear screaming in the background. And it has, here I stand 2.5 years later, after launching that. I no longer, I said goodbye to the Biz Women Rock podcast a little over a year ago.
Why did that freeze?
A year ago, most of the time, and I am being very focused on doing something that can really scale without me needing to scale my time for it.
So I have a question for Maddie and Katie specifically. Someone asked, why are you using Acast or Simplecast? I know Maddie specific reasons, and Katie, for you, why are you using Anchor? If you could just talk about the advantages of why you're using those posts for, especially with the network, and then Katie, if you could take it after Maddie's done.
Sure. Acast we love for the dynamic ad insertion. It's clean. It's great. We get good CPMS from them, which is really important, and quality ads. So we're really happy with that. I like Simplecast because I have the opportunity to have them fill with dynamic ads, which I don't quite get as good a CPMS as I do with Acast. That's improving. They're really fixing that up. But then I can also have third-party sales where I can't with Acast. Acast will let me do my own sales, but they won't let me have a third-party sell it. So that's why I do the two. I also look at like who's giving me the best metrics, and then when I'm working with clients, to making sure that I'm getting great widgets and things that I can share with them and other places. So Simplecast gives me a lot of that great stuff, and that's why we like them for more of those kind of clients.
Maddie, what's your take on, and Katie, what was the host that, is it Megaphone that a lot of people use for insert? What's your take on Megaphone, Maddie?
It's great for a big network.
All right.
They work with a lot of big networks, so you're not going to get as much personal touch as you would with an Acast. So, and it's expensive. So, looking at that, Acast is very reasonable. I mean, honestly, for the price and for the dynamic ads, you can't go wrong with Acast, especially if you're just starting out.
That's good to hear. Katie, how about you?
So I started out with Libsyn, as I mentioned before, and I want to make sure to say that like every host has their own beautiful quality of work that they do, and I loved Libsyn for a long time. The challenge is I also have dynamic ad insertion, and the bill for my Libsyn dynamic ad insertion was getting up to $1,000 a month, and I was just at the beginning of my growth, so I was really looking around for other options. The reason I chose Anchor was not the fact that it is free, was a huge drawing point, but obviously it needed to take care of my issues. One of the biggest turning points for me was that they offer ads. Like they do deliver me ads. I not only say ads and re-ads for Anchor,
Okay,
and I'm
bye, guys.
able to offer ads for Anchor as a tool.